In last week's episode, guest Lauren Eanes shared the first part of her UK sabbatical, a literary focused itinerary around southern England with her husband and 4 kids. But that was only the beginning. In this episode, find out what happened when the kids flew home and Lauren embarked on stages 2 and 3 of her journey, including a pilgrimage along the Pembrokeshire coast and a postponed honeymoon escape to the Cotswolds.
Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. Each week, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the UK Travel Planner Podcast. Now, last week, in episode 176, you heard from listener Lauren Eanes about the first stage of her sabbatical, a literary themed adventure through southern England with her husband and 4 children. Now, in this episode, we're going to pick up the story as Lauren's sabbatical takes a very different turn. So after waving the kids off at Heathrow, she and her husband embarked on the next chapters of their journey. Hi, Lauren. It's fantastic to have you on the podcast again this week, because you were on last week telling us all about your fantastic trip with the children, with your kids. Not children, I shouldn't call them children. They're teenagers. They won't like that, I know.
Yeah.
I used to have a teenager too at one point. They were like, excuse me, children? With your teenagers last week, all about your literary tour of England, which was amazing, and your trip over to Paris. But after that, the kids went home. And you continued your trip around England and actually went to Wales as well. So would you like to give us a brief introduction again for anybody who hasn't listened? But I know after that introduction, they'll be rewinding to listen to last week's for sure. But if anybody didn't listen, would you like to just give us a quick introduction about yourself again, please?
Yeah, so my name is Lauren Eanes and I live in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I am a Lutheran pastor who was on sabbatical this past summer. And my family and I used that time to travel to the UK.
Yeah, you did, and you had a fantastic time with the kids doing all the literary stuff, which was amazing. Right, so now pick us up from when the kids went home.
Yeah, so the short answer of what happened next is we took a train to Wales. We waited until we knew their plane had taken off. And for those who are worried about our kids, my aunt was on the plane with them. Although I think they were like pretty seasoned travelers at that point. They could have handled it just fine on their own. But yeah, it was kind of strange leaving them at the airport. And it was a big shift to go from traveling with 4 teenagers and corralling everyone and managing the schedule and the travel and everything to a much slower form of travel, doing a lot of walking with just adults.
Okay, so the focus of your sabbatical changed. So I know you did now a pilgrimage walk at this point, and this is why you went into Wales. So do you want to talk to us about why you did that walk and how you decide on the location of that pilgrimage?
Yeah, so let me just say a little bit about what a pilgrimage is in case people are like, what is she even talking about? So a really short definition is just a walk with purpose. You know, it's a journey that's usually on foot along a path, often to a sacred place. And it's just an opportunity to get out of your ordinary daily life and walk with intention. And I really wanted to do that. To just be open to new discoveries and insight and transformation that walking through the countryside can bring. I'd had some friends who'd done the Camino in Spain, the Camino de Santiago, and really gotten a lot out of that. And I knew that there were a lot of old medieval pilgrimage walks in the UK. And so I thought while we were there, I wanted to take advantage of that. So I went on the British Pilgrimage Trust website, which is just, I think it's britishpilgrimage.org. And I highly recommend anyone who wants to do a pilgrimage in Britain to start there. It's a really good website, wealth of information with a ton of different routes. And you can search by like the length of the walk you want to do, or the part of the country, or the type of pilgrimage that you want to do, which was kind of overwhelming because there's a lot of different options. So it was hard to decide. Like, I just knew I wanted to do a pilgrimage, but from there I wasn't sure. And I was in the library one day flipping through a book that had just these gorgeous photos of different places in the UK. And I saw a picture of the Pembrokeshire coast, and I was just captivated. I was like, where is this? I need to go there. And I looked at the map and I was like, oh, this is at like the tippy little corner of far coast of Wales. It's nowhere where we were planning to be traveling. So I thought, oh, well, I'll put that on the list for a future trip. But then a few days later, I was back on the British Pilgrimage Trust page and looking at walks that were like 5 to 7 days long. And the Way of St. David popped up. And so I'm reading about it, and the description says that part of the path followed the Pembrokeshire coast path. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's that beautiful place from that book. I knew nothing about St. David at that point, had never heard of him before. It turns out he's the patron saint of Wales, so he's kind of important, but I didn't know anything. But I started reading about his story and reading about the route itself, and it just grabbed me. I thought, this is what we need to do. Completely different. I'd never been to Wales. And then I discovered that the feast day for St. David, the day that he's celebrated in the church, is March 1st. And that is my father-in-law's birthday. So I thought, all right, well, that's a fun coincidence. Like, I think this is it. This is what we're going to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. And of course, you and your husband were joined by both of your parents, both sets of parents for a week. So how did that come about, and what was it like to travel with them?
Yeah. So as a pastor, my job takes me away from my family a lot. And so I knew I wanted my sabbatical time to involve and include as much family as possible. So, we did the couple weeks with the kids, and then I invited my husband's parents and my dad to join us on this part of the adventure. I just thought it would be a meaningful thing for us to do together, which it very much was. And we traveled really well together, and we bonded a lot, and it just really brought us all a lot closer together.
Oh, I can imagine that. That was a really special thing to do as well, and fantastic memories as well that you're going to look back on about, doing that walk together. So tell us about walking the St. David's Way along that coast. What were the highlights or memorable moments?
How much time do you have? We could do like a 5-hour long podcast and I'd still be talking about it. So I'll try to keep it timely here. But so the complete route was we started like near Fishguard, and walked to the city of St. David's. And so it was about 30 miles of walking that we did over 4 days. The route began at St. Gwyndolf's Church, which was founded in the 6th century. And right by the church is a holy well that predates Christianity. It was a well that people were going to. It had purported healing powers for millennia, which is incredible. And it's a well that ancient pilgrims from the 8th century following the same path would have stopped at to wash their feet and take a break along the way. So it just, being in a place with such deep history and incredible continuity and connection with the past was so powerful. And just feeling that connection with people who have been walking the same path for hundreds of years, like seeing the Celtic cross carved into a stone from the 8th century that has been a marker and a waypost on this pilgrimage path for centuries. I mean, it's still there. It is so profound to feel that connection. That part of it was just incredible. And then there's just like the natural beauty of the place, these dramatic cliffs and the craggy hills and the sandy beaches and the little coves and rock pools and the beautiful little harbors. I felt like I had to stop like every 50 feet and take a photo because the view had changed again and was just so beautiful again. So that was just incredible. We were really lucky with weather too. We really didn't have any rain at all. There were a couple of times of incredibly light drizzle, but very few. So beautiful days. We saw wildlife. We saw a young kestrel in his nest. We saw a seal pup that had just been born. We were there in late July, so it was like really, really early for seal pupping season, which is more like September typically. But we did see some, and that was just magical. We learned about a lot of the endangered species, especially the birds. We saw a lot of chough, which was heartening because that's a species that's been struggling. And so just that connection to the earth and nature was wonderful. And we also just had a lot of fun. We stopped at the Mellon-Tregwent wool mill and we watched them weave. And of course, then we purchased some souvenirs, which it's not cheap, but it was, that was really cool. We went to the Blue Lagoon. And my crazy husband actually jumped off the ledge, about 25 feet up in the air into that cold water, which was a highlight for him. It was a highlight for us too. We were standing there on the shore cheering him on.
And nobody was tempted to join him.
No, I was a little bit tempted, but not a lot. I was happy to take the video. It was all right. So, and then, the place that we ended up was the city of St. David's, which is the smallest city in the UK, and only really called a city because it has a cathedral. Yep. But it's just a delightful little town, and the cathedral is magnificent. Again, a place of just deep, deep history and gorgeous art and architecture and a real palpable sense of spirituality. So yeah, everything about it was just magical.
It does sound amazing. I have to say, I was on the island of Iona a few years ago, and just seeing the crosses there and that sort of walk around the island, that was also, it's amazing. You kind of cannot. And I grew up in the UK, so I have that kind of sense of, having those thousands and thousands of years of history. But even still, it still is kind of like pretty awe-inspiring when you see something like that. Now I know at the end. Yeah. You stayed in St. Non's retreat at St. David's, is that right? So how was that?
Yeah. Well, so there are different ways to do a pilgrimage, right? And so one is that, you take everything you need for the week and you put it in your pack and you walk 7 or 8 miles each day, and then you stop to sleep in a campground or a guest house or something. And then you get up the next day and you keep going. And we did it a little differently in that we had a home base that we returned to every night. So we would, do our walk, and then we'd go back to the retreat center. And then the next day we'd go back to where we left off the day before. So we stayed at St. Non's Retreat Center. It's a really special place. It's right on the coast. And so you just have these amazing views, and you walk into the guest house, and you just feel warmth and hospitality and peace. And it's right on the Pembrokeshire coast path and part of the pilgrimage route. So St. Non was the mother of St. David. And on the grounds of the retreat center are the ruins of St. Non's Chapel, which they can't date with any certainty, but it's definitely one of the oldest buildings associated with Christianity in Wales. And it has this large stone with a Celtic cross engraved in it that they've dated to like the 7th or 8th century. And adjacent to that is another holy well, which again would have been one of the main stops of medieval pilgrims who would do this pilgrimage. So again, it's just a place thick with history and meaning. So it's cool to just be there. And it was just a great place to stay, too. The hosts are a delightful married couple, and they fed us delicious food for breakfast and dinner, and they gave us a packed lunch before we left each day. And the beds were comfortable, and the showers were hot, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So, yeah, originally I had not wanted to do it the way we did. Like, I wanted to just like walk and stop and then get up and keep going. But in the end, I was really glad that we had a home base to return to each night and kind of reflect on the day and be fed meals and to only have to carry day packs and not have to carry like all the things was really nice. And there are things, when you're doing a pilgrimage, you can also have it set up that like your bag is transported to your next stop. But that all seemed too complicated. So this actually worked out really, really well.
No, I like the sound of that. I'm not a massive fan of kind of walking anywhere, but if I was going to do it, I like the way that you've done it. I'm kind of well known for that. But now after this, where did you go? I think you went to somewhere for a couple of days?
Yeah, so we went to Caldey Island, which you mentioned Iona. Caldey is another one of the UK's holy islands, like Iona and Bardsey, and Holy Island, Lindisfarne. So Caldey is a special place. So when we were done with our pilgrimage, we went from St. David's to Tenby. And Caldey Island's about a mile off the coast of Tenby. And so it's actually really easy to do a day trip to Caldey. A lot of people who are on holiday in Tenby will just go over for a few hours and enjoy. But you can also stay there, which is what we did, again, at a retreat center called St. Philomena's, which again just had private, simple but very comfortable rooms, and delicious meals were included. And there are some wonderful walking trails on the island. And so we continued to do a lot of walking there. And there's also, again, just some rich history. A Celtic monastery was founded on the island in the 6th century, which again, like you said, like you're from the UK, so you're kind of used to having old things around you. Being from the US, like this is really old. And so it's just pretty powerful to see that and experience that. One of the things they have in the old priory, it's called the Caldey Stone. And it's this big stone they've dated to the 6th century that has inscriptions in both Latin and in Ogham, which is like an ancient script that originated in Ireland. So it's just fascinating. And Caldey also has woodlands to walk through. They have red squirrels on the island, which is fun.
Cute.
There's a beautiful, there's a beautiful sandy beach. So it's just a place apart to relax and have rest and peace. Oh, and the monks have a chocolate factory. There's a Cistercian monastery now on the island. And the way that they help to fund their ministry is through making chocolate. And the dark chocolate in particular, phenomenal. So if you go to Caldey, if you do nothing else, get some chocolate.
That sounds good. So now, did your parents go with you as well to the island? They did. So
yeah.
How was that after the walk-in to have those few days of kind of, I guess, chilling out and relaxing?
Yeah, it was wonderful. Everyday life is so busy. And to be able to just step away from the busyness and just be, and just be together, that's something that I'll really treasure forever.
That's lovely. So now, after that, your parents, did they go back to the States or did they continue a bit of traveling around the UK?
Yeah, they went back to the States. They had done some traveling before they met up with us in various places in the UK. And so at that point, their journey was done.
Now, I know you continued on, and I was so pleased to find out that you stopped at Hay-on-Wye, which is, you had to, with your love of literary love, you had to have stopped there. So how did you find Hay? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, so this sort of began the third part of our adventure, which was a bit of a belated honeymoon. My husband and I got married in 2019, and we had planned on doing a honeymoon to the Cotswolds in 2020. And we all know what happened then. So we thought, okay, well, we need to do our honeymoon. So that's what we did. After we left Tenby, we rented a car and we drove through the Brecon Beacons. And I was very determined to get to Hay-on-Wye before we went over to the Cotswolds. And I mean, it was great just getting there, driving, observing the landscape and how it changed from the coast was really cool. And yeah, Hay-on-Wye did not disappoint. We only had a few hours there, unfortunately, which is nowhere near enough time to explore all the bookstores, but we did our best to get through as many as we could. And we did our best to not buy too many books because we knew we had to transport them home. But yeah, we got an early edition Jennings book, and I got a copy of E.H. Shepard's Drawn from Memory, which is sort of about his growing up in London. We got an old but really good condition Dickens. So yeah, the books we got connected to the travels that we had done a few weeks earlier, and I got a few books on Celtic spirituality because I wanted to continue to explore that after having lived it for a week. So yeah, love Hay-on-Wye. Would love to go back. Would love to go for the festival that they do each year. Ugh, that would be amazing.
It really is full of bookshops. You kind of say that to people, but then you actually go and so there's just so many amazing bookshops in Hay. So if you like books, that's a place to go. But you also did a bit of did you do a little bit of hiking before you went to Hay-on-Wye? I'm guessing you did. So was that a bit different, I guess, from doing the coastal hike?
Yeah. So we hiked in the Brecon Beacons. We went to Talaba on Usk, which part of why we went there is that it's said that area inspired Tolkien. The Black Mountains really inspired him for his writing in Lord of the Rings. So that was fun to do that hike. We did a circular trail that took us along the canal there and then up a hill and over a ridge. So we got beautiful views of the Usk Valley and the Black Mountains. And then we went back down to the valley and the Talabont Reservoir, which was beautiful. So there's just a variety of scenery all along the way. And that was great. It was like 5 or 6 miles. It wasn't a super long hike, but it gave us a good taste of a lot of different things.
Well, that's great. So I love the fact you've got such a lot of variety in your trip. You really have. And so now you head to the Cotswolds. So let's have a chat about how that went. So I think you headed were you staying in Campden?
Yeah, so that was our home base, and that was a great base for exploring the Cotswolds. It's big enough that it's got like great pubs and great shops, but it wasn't too overrun with tourists while we were there. It was just a great little market town with a lot of character and a great place to use as our home base.
No, I agree. I do also like Campden. Unfortunately, some of the Cotswolds towns and villages are becoming a bit of a victim of their own success, so they're getting extremely busy. But I think Campden was a good choice, and obviously it's the start or the end, whichever we're looking at. I think it's probably the start of the Cotswold Way. So, did you do a bit of walking on the Cotswold Way as well?
We did a bit. We did a lot, actually, in one day. We walked about 12 miles.
Oh, wow.
That day, which was kind of crazy. That was our longest walking day. But by that point, right, it had been a month. And when we were traveling with the kids, I mean, we were doing, 15, 20,000 steps a day in cities and things. And then we're doing 7 or 9 miles of hiking. So by this point, we built up some good muscles in our legs. And we ended up, we took the bus down to Stanton and then walked the Cotswold Way back up to Chipping Campden.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was long, but every step was worth it. It was really great. I loved that day. Stanton has the most, it's just a little teeny village, but it has the most incredible little church that is definitely worth stopping in if, like me, you're into old churches. I think by that point, my husband was a little tired of old churches, but I was like, we're stopping at the church. So that was great. And then, the Cotswold Way, like the path is really clearly marked and the scenery is varied and interesting. And you get to Broadway about halfway through the walk, and that was an excellent time to stop at a tea shop and have a cream tea. We were ready for that.
Yeah.
And we walked up to the Broadway Tower with the beautiful views from there. And so, yeah, then when we arrived back in Chipping Campden, they have the marker that says, like, yeah, this is the terminus of the Cotswold Way, either the beginning or the end, depending on which direction you're doing it. So even though we'd only walked like a little more than a tenth of the Cotswold Way, we still took our picture. Like, here we are at the end, because it had been a long walk. We felt good about that.
I'll tell you a little secret here, Lauren. I've walked about 5 meters of it, and I've still got a picture of myself at the end of that.
I think that counts. I think that counts. You were on the Cotswold Way.
Exactly. So now you went to visit lots of the other. So you mentioned Broadway. It's great. You went to Broadway. You went to Broadway Tower. You went to Stanton. You've stayed in Chipping Campden. So what other towns and villages did you go and visit? Because there's some wonderful market towns as well, like Morton and Stowe. And so tell me where you went. What did you love?
Yeah, so we did spend one day just driving around and checking out little towns like that. And we went to Burton on the Water and Stowe on the Wold and Morton and Marsh. I'm sad to say I didn't love these 3 towns only because they were so crowded. And I can't complain. Like, we were 2 of the tourists making it crowded, right? But yeah, like you said, they're kind of a victim of their own success. And my guess is that other times of the year, the towns would be more enjoyable and more manageable. And we knew going in early August, it was going to be busy. But I was surprised by just how busy it was. I really was. And that really did damper the experience. So yeah, I think like my advice for people would be don't go in August. but if like us, that's the only time you have. We really did. I really liked Stowe on the Wold. It didn't make me feel quite as claustrophobic and surrounded by people. And we did enjoy some of the shops there. And Burton on the Water, we just kind of on a whim decided to go into the motoring museum.
Oh, it's so
there.
good.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Neither of us are really big like car people, but we loved that museum. It is just a feast for the eyes. There are interesting cars. There's so much interesting memorabilia. It was great. That was definitely a highlight. And it wasn't very crowded at all. So even though you stepped out of the museum and you're mobs of people, there weren't a lot of people in the museum. It was fantastic.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because Doug and I love the Motor Museum in Bourton on the Water. Bourton, again, has become a bit of a victim of its own success, in that it doesn't matter, to be honest, it doesn't seem to matter whatever time of year. And I've stayed there in January as well, which you think really low season, still quite busy. Obviously in the summer it gets, the last time I stayed there, I think it was June. And of course that everybody's got the feet in the river and having a little paddle. And a lot of students also seem to kind of descend on Bourton on the Water. So that is becoming really busy. The last few times I've actually stayed in just outside Burford, and I've also stayed in Stowe. We really love Stowe because there's just something. I love walking over the church, and I do you know how many photos I've had taken for that church door? I don't know. Yeah. I must have about 100 photos. You've got to have a photo of the church door. But it is becoming that way. And did you go to Byberry and the Slaughters, or did you manage to get to them?
We didn't. By that point, we were just kind of burned out. We had planned to go to the Slaughters, but there were just so many cars on the road, and we were like, it probably there were going to be more people there than we wanted there to be. And so we were like, we just need to go back. And that was our last day before we were flying out. And so we're like, oh, we should probably go back and eat some food and pack our bags and all that.
No, actually, I am actually going to share a tip as well, that because I'm sure there's lots of people listening and kind of going, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't fancy the amount of crowds there are, but also the parking situation, which is why we work with Go Cotswolds. They're a small group that do company that do family run that do, so you can basically go out with them and they do the parking. You don't have to worry about the parking, and they tell you where you're going, and you can go and see some of the smaller places. So because the Cotswold is becoming a kind of bit of a bottleneck with the amount of cars and stuff on the road, and parking at places like Byberry can be incredibly difficult, which is why I kind of say if you if you want to go and see those places and you don't want to be doing the drive then that's a good option. So that's worth considering next time, Lauren.
Yeah, no, it definitely would be.
For sure. So I just want to put that out there because I know I don't want to put people off going to the Cotswolds because they are beautiful, but you do have to kind of sometimes fight the crowds, and try to get parking can be a bit of a problem. But have you got any kind of advice apart from not going in August? Did you manage to get parked okay? And was that all right?
We did. I think probably Burton on the Water was the most crowded and hardest to find parking, but we did. Stowe, we parked at the is it a Tesco? They have a big Tesco, I think, that you're allowed to park there and walk into town, and that was super easy. Yeah, Morton and Marsh, we had trouble finding parking. Burton, they have a big parking lot that we were able to find a spot. So parking wasn't terrible. There were places to park and walk into town. Yeah, I mean, I think just as long as you're mentally prepared for the crowds, then you can manage it. It's definitely still worth going. Well, we also went to the Rollright Stones. And that was interesting and not super crowded. There are a couple other people there, but not too many. And so I think, we wanted to hit the towns that everyone talks about. And I think I wish we had spent more time going a little more off the beaten track, and seeing some of the places that aren't as popular, but equally beautiful and fascinating.
Absolutely, and there's just so much to see in the Cotswolds, and it's a huge area. That's another thing as well. Like you were in the kind of northern part, they just stretch all the way down to Bath, so you've got a massive area that you can explore. So just another reason to go back, Lauren.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, okay, so you've how long is this? You've been traveling a month now, so this is a long trip. So how did this kind of second and third part of the trip? How was it different? How did it feel different from traveling earlier when you had all the kids with you? I guess a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the dynamics and the pace were completely different. It really was like having 3 trips in one. The trip with the kids, exploring authors and books. There was time with our parents on pilgrimage, with a lot of time of deep reflection and self-discovery and just being in touch with our spirit. And then there was our belated honeymoon in the Brecon Beacons and the Cotswolds, and each of them were just really distinct, and each was really special.
It sounds like, honestly, you just had the best sabbatical. When is the next one that you can do? Do you have to wait a few years, or can you do it next year?
Yeah, it's like at least 7 years before I can do another one. So, yeah. But that doesn't mean, I definitely have some frequent flyer points, airline points and credit card points and stuff. So I am really hoping to do a shorter trip sooner than 7 years.
I'm sure you will, and I'm sure it'll be great fun. Whatever you do, and we've already had a little bit of chat about Beatrix Potter, so you never know that you might have a bit of a Beatrix Potter theme going on. Now, if you know how I end the podcast, I always ask the same question at the end of every episode. So, if someone was wanting to include a pilgrimage or a countryside walk into their UK trip, what would be your one tip for them?
Oh, I think it would just be just do it. You will not regret it. Walking forces you to slow down. It makes you so much more aware of where you are and where you're going and who and what is around you. And just getting away from crowded cities and being connected with the earth. It was just so life-giving and restorative. And it gave me time and space to just reflect on lots of different things, to not have to rush on to the next thing on the to-do list, but just to walk and breathe and listen. It all just really, really fed my soul. And the UK countryside is so beautiful. The extensive network of public footpaths is such an incredible gift. The US has nothing like it. It's amazing. And so having the freedom to just step out into an unfamiliar place and discover what you find along the way was such a gift. So yeah, I guess other than just do it, my advice would be, just pack light, both literally and figuratively. Embrace the unexpected, notice the little things, and stay open to whatever the journey may bring.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. That's wonderful advice. Wonderful advice for life, actually, Lauren.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me again this week to talk us through your trip report. You had a fantastic time. I can hear that. I know when I spoke to you last week as well, and this week you can really... I can feel, I know you're literally thousands of kilometers away from me because you're in the States and I'm in Australia, but I can honestly, just looking at your face, I can feel the joy radiating from you for this trip. So it's just been fabulous to talk to you. And thank you so much for sharing it with our listeners as well. Just lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It has been super fun to relive it with you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Lauren for joining me to share stages 2 and 3 of her sabbatical. If you missed part 1 of Lauren's story, be sure to go back and listen to last week's episode. You'll find all the links and resources mentioned today in the show notes at uktravelplanning.com/episode 177. A huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsors, Melissa, Vanetta and Shannon, for supporting the show, amongst others. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast and receive your own shout out, you'll find the link in the show notes. And don't forget, if you'd like to share your own UK travel story or ask a question, you can leave me a voice message via SpeakPipe. The link is also in the show notes. But that's it for this week, and until next week, from me, happy UK travel planning. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the UK Travel Planning Podcast. As always, show notes can be found at uktravelplanning.com. If you've enjoyed the show, why not leave us feedback via text or a review on your favourite podcast app? We love to hear from you, and you never know, you may receive a shout out in a future episode. But as always, that just leaves me to say, until next week, happy UK travel planning.